Okay, it's recording now.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining in for another episode of NITRUS Talks. We are very excited to bring to you Mr. Abidali Neemuchwala, who is one of the most distinguished and perhaps the most popular alumni of NIT Raipur. He is from the batch of 1990, and after that, he went to IIT Bombay. He worked with TCS, scaled the corporate ladder, and he has been extremely successful in Wipro. He started off as a COO, eventually became a CEO for 4 years, and has many tales that he would share with us today. So, without much taking much time, I would give the floor to Abid sir. Please, sir.
Thank you, Archit. First of all, Rahul ji, Archit, and I'm sure there are other people involved in setting these discussions or presentations for the benefit of our alumni. I want to commend that because I know there's a lot of hard work, and I'm sure it's a ton of benefit, not only for the alumni who attend this, and I want to thank all of the people attending, the audience, but it's also beneficial for the speakers. And at least I seek opportunity to learn in every interaction, and I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot with some of the very distinguished alumni present over here as well. Majid sir, Rahul ji, yourself, Murthy sir, and many others, I'm sure. So it's almost embarrassing to present in front of you all. Rahul ji talked to me about talking to the alumni, especially the younger ones, in terms of sharing my personal journey, and which I'm happy to do more from the mistakes I made and the learnings I've had perspective. But I also think, I'm just 55, and a part of the journey lies ahead. And I also want to share why I'm so excited about the future, not only for personally for me, but for all of us. And that is what I'm engaged in right now in my professional life. So I'll kind of balance it between a little bit of my learnings from the past and a little bit of why I'm so excited about the future, and why some of the younger people, and especially alumni from our college, can make the most of that opportunity. So Rahul ji, I'm kind of I've tweaked the subject a little bit, and I hope I have your permission and you're okay with it.
Yeah. All the best to you, and I think you are the person we are looking forward to listen to. So as in whatever you feel like, that's good.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So first of all, I have to say that I've been lucky and I've been blessed, and every institution, right from my family to my college to the companies I worked for, the customers I service, the suppliers from whom I got services, have been part of whatever success I've been able to achieve, including all the people involved in those institutions. So, I'll start with 4 or 5 stories across each one of the parts of how I break down my life journeys, my life journey. The first story I want to talk about is, I started in a business family. My dad was a businessman. He owned a bookshop, and I went to, like a lot of our alumni, I'm sure I went to Central School, Kendriya Vidyalaya, and my father had a bookstore which sold books for Central School. One of the very early things coming from a business family is that, every afternoon after you come back from school, I was supposed to spend a couple of hours at the bookshop. Sometimes I hated it because, all my other friends got to that couple of extra hours to play. The homework never goes away. But looking back, I think that was my best MBA that I did at my father's shop. And I'll give you one example. My dad taught me a customer centricity. As a small book shop owner, like all small businessmen, Customer is the king. And he had limited capital when he ran the bookstore, so he couldn't have all the inventory that he needed when customers asked. And there was one trick that was there that he and I kind of played together, is whenever a customer used to come to the bookshop, uh, he would never say, no, I don't have something in stock, to the customer. So just as an example, if a customer comes and he doesn't have a certain book, my job was to take the 10, 20 rupees, whatever that book might cost, from the cash register and run. We had a bookstore in a market that was pretty much a book market, a stationery bazaar. So there were 5 or 6 other competitors around. And I was, I later used the term, I was the runner in the bookstore, where I used to take the 20 rupees, run, get that book. And by the time the customer went back, he not only got all he wanted from our inventory, but he also was serviced fully from the inventory of our competitors. And that is just one story where, I've practiced all my life, never say no to a customer, never let a customer's expectation go unmet. And a lot of times in organizations that I've run, people think, oh, salespeople handle customer. I believe every individual, whether you are employed or you are self-employed, whether you are in finance, HR, or you are in the line job, you are in engineering, you're in sales, everybody has a customer. Sometimes the customers are internal to the organization, sometimes the customers are external to the organization. So the key is to identify who's your customer and making sure that your customer is completely satisfied. Is something that I learned early and I've practiced in life, and I think it's very useful. Of course, I joined TCS out of IIT Bombay, as it was said by Archit, and it's a very interesting story. When you graduate from IIT Bombay, everybody wants to work, or at least at that time, when in the early 90s, everybody wanted to work for an American company. Schlumberger, Citigroup, and some of these were the most popular companies. And because I didn't have interview practice, a day before, and I wanted to actually work for Citibank. And sometimes people think there might be a huge strategy behind that. There was no strategy. Early in my childhood, I grew up in Bombay. IIT, I went to Bombay. And the best thing in Bombay is to be in front of the Arabian Sea. And Citibank at that time, COSL was the city entity in India, used to give seaside facing apartments in Juhu to their IIT and IIM fresh graduate recruits. So, sometimes people attach too much strategy to how you plan your career, but for me, it was pretty simple that, for a young lad to be able to stay in a sea-facing apartment in Bombay was a great thing. So I wanted to join Citibank. And then because I'd never given an interview, a day before I was very nervous because I wanted that job desperately. So I decided to practice giving interviews. So I figured out what is the company which is interviewing today. That is the whole interview season, as most of us know, 3-4 weeks where all the campus interviews happen. So there was a company called TCS, Tata Consulting Services. And I had heard of Tata Motors. That time it was called Telco. I'd heard of Tata Steel. I never even knew there was a company called TCS, part of the Tata Group. This is 1991. So I said, okay, let's, so in the typical IIT style with flip-flops and a t-shirt and jeans, I went into that interview, but I met a great gentleman. He was one of the 4 or 5 founders of TCS, Dr. Nirmal Jain, who interviewed me. He later on became the CEO of Tata Infotech and others. And in that interview, he painted a picture to me to say that how India has lost out on the manufacturing race to China, and how India has the potential to become the intellectual capital of the world. And just as a young mind, of course, patriotic, like all of us are during our college days, very nationalistic. The whole story appealed to me. Of course, next day I gave the Citibank interview. Fortunately, I got selected from both. And it was always a difficult situation. And whenever I have a difficult question, at that time I picked up the phone. It was not easy to make phone calls, but I made a trunk call to my father and said, I have two jobs. I'm having difficulty deciding which one to take. Of course, Citibank was more attractive, more money, everybody dying to go there. And my father made a very simple, gave a very simple answer. And because everybody understands Hindi here, I won't anglicize that answer. क्या तू अमेरिकन बैंक की बात कर रहा है, टाटास में जॉब मिल रहा है और दूसरों की बात करता है. And that's how I landed up in TCS. It was not fashionable to call it a startup at that time, but it was about 1,500 employees when I joined, 2 floors at Air India building and a few other offices. And everybody knew everybody's spouse's name and children's name. And then I enjoyed the rest of the journey for 23 years as I grew with the company. As part of TCS, I had the opportunity to, of course, everybody joins as a programmer, and but I very quickly realized, and at IIT I had done industrial management, which is a little, which is a proxy to MBA for engineers, and I realized that being on the front end is very important. So I was a successful programmer. I was a successful project manager in the early days. I had the fortune of doing National Stock Exchange and be the project manager for National Securities Depository Limited. Those were the early days in India. At that time, TCS was more focused on India, very little overseas, like Wipro and a lot of other HCL and a lot of other IT companies, which all started post the IBMs and multinationals having left India during some of the socialist communist period of India. So I did the National Securities Depository Limited project, and what happened is that there was an opportunity in Japan for the Tokyo Stock Exchange. It is surprising, not now, but at that time, that NFC, National Stock Exchange of India, at that time was more technologically advanced than the Tokyo Stock Exchange. So Hitachi won that project, and there was a subcontracting opportunity. And because I had done that engagement in India, I was made to make presentations, and TCS won the deal, so I was sent over there. That was my first touch with some kind of sales, and I realized that there is opportunity for sales. So I started bugging my bosses saying I want to move from project management and engineering into sales, and they very happily obliged, and I was converted from a project manager at the Hitachi project in Japan to the sales leader in Japan. And I was very happy. And when I talked about it to the rest of the TCS salespeople, everybody was laughing and giggling. And I didn't understand why that was the case. Only later I realized that they were giggling because nobody would ever want to go to Japan for a sales role. It is one of the toughest markets to sell, and it takes the longest sales cycles over there. So that was the best training I could have got in sales. Because if you can build relationships in Japan and sell in Japan, you can sell anywhere else in the world. And of course, then the rest is history. Later, there was a CEO change at TCS. Mr. Ramdurai became the CEO. He put a team of young budding professionals in the US, and the Y2K boom was just starting. And I again got lucky that having achieved some success in Japan, I was moved to the US. I built the US Midwest business out of Chicago, and that is the time I came to the US in 1998. And I've been here almost since then, on and off, done a couple of overseas roles, but otherwise built the US Midwest business for TCS. And later I got the opportunity again to build the BPO business in around 2008. And I'll tell that story in a minute. And after that, there was an opportunity. Again, I had breakfast with Mr. Premji in London. And I had the opportunity to then lead Wipro as its CEO. This was 2014, 2015 timeframe, when the whole world was actually pivoting into digital. And I thought it was a great opportunity to pivot a very successful company, but who might lose relevance if it doesn't pivot fast enough. And so I enjoyed that. And now, while at Wipro, I set up what's called as Wipro Ventures, which is investing in startups. That was part of that was just to understand personally for me and the top leadership team what digital actually means, because we all talked about digital, but we never understood digital. And this is I'm talking about 2015, 2016. Now everybody understands digital. There was always, with technologies, there's always this little bit, with all enterprises, there's always this little bit of a fear you have, where they say, oh, this wave shall also pass. This is old wine in new bottle kind of mindset that large enterprises develop, and that's why they go out of business. As we see, all the enterprises that were the top 10 or 20 in S&P 500 in 1990s are no longer in the top 10 or 20 today, and some of them don't even exist as companies, and that happens because enterprises have a lethargy that builds on. And what I realized is, if I have a venture capital corporate venture fund within Wipro, it gives us the opportunity to not move the needle financially for Wipro. A $10 billion company, $100 million fund is a rounding error, but it gave us the opportunity. I used to do my leadership meetings in Mountain View, California, in our office where we set up Wipro Ventures. And every evening after the leadership meeting, every quarter, we used to call 8 or 10 entrepreneurs, founders, to have cocktails and talk to us about their companies. And that was eye-opening as to how the world is changing. So, even a large company like Wipro with $8 to $10 billion in revenue can learn from entrepreneurs who were like, they were happy if they had $800,000 of revenue at that point in time. So that's kind of my journey. And after realizing how interesting that was, post Wipro, I decided to become a venture capitalist and an investor, which is what I do right now, investing in both early stage software startups and later stage public and private technology services companies. One of the things I've learned, and I've kind of always maintained this, while I've changed roles, I've done many things, changed companies, but there are 3 or 4 values that have always worked for me, which I've listed on the slide, which whether it is humility, whether it is curiosity, whether it is building relationships. When I was building the BPO business at TCS, one of the companies I acquired was called eSurf. It was the new version of Kozel that I wanted to get hired out of IIT Bombay. And I acquired it from, again, a very eminent Indian diaspora person, Vikram Pandit, who was at that time the chief chairman and CEO of Citigroup. And, that relationship after Wipro, I launched in partnership with him. I launched a public special purpose acquisition company with him. So maintaining relationships over long terms, recruiting people you have respect for as your mentors, has something that has worked very well for me over time. And then finally, in business, as in life, it's always important, irrespective of what you do, to measure yourself by outcomes and defining your outcomes before you start. These are some of the values that have always worked for me, and I thought I'll share with you. So I talked about the values. The other thing that has worked for me is the beginner's mindset. And I'll tell you one story around that. In around 2000, by 2005-06, from Chicago, I was moved back to India because TCS was supposed to IPO. And then at that time, I was running about a third of the company from a P&L perspective. And I was part of the strategy team and stuff like that. And then TCS always prided itself a lot on being a technology company. And so BPO was always seen as the stepchild of the IT services industry because it didn't involve technology as much. It was operations, back office operations. And then, we saw General Electric, which had a captive called Genpact, which some of you know, was IPO'd. It was called Jekis at that time. And then Infosys built Progeon with HDFC Bank's partnership. And Premji, Wipro acquired Spectramind. And IBM acquired Daksh. And then suddenly around the 2005 timeframe, it was all about BPO. So I was given a task to define the strategy for TCS for BPO. And of course, at that time, I didn't know all the terms that I know now. But essentially, it was a platform play that, look, we are too late. Everybody else has entered the BPO market. So we should do an acquisition. That's how I ended up doing the Citibank's back office acquisition. But when I was announced, I made this presentation to the board, and the board loved it. And like it is said in professional life, no good act goes unpunished. I was asked to execute on that strategy. So from running about a third of the company, I was left with about $40-50 million of revenue, which was also like a very small percentage of 4-5% of TCS's revenue. That also we had just kind of sculled out from here and there to at least have some base on which I could build the BPO business. And there were a lot of well-meaning friends who called me and said, what happened? Something must have gone wrong. They demoted you from running about $600 million of revenue to $30 million. But I think the beginner's mindset has always worked very well for me. Never be afraid of restarting, doing something new that helps you prove yourself all over again. But more importantly, that is what organizations value. That is where the value gets created, not in running what exists, but in building what doesn't exist. And that's something that has worked very well for me. The third thing is taking risks all through the way, of course, calculated risks. And the fourth thing that has worked for me is a relentless focus on outcomes, especially if you are a public company leader, if you are a CEO, if you are an investor. Everything else is good. As I say, luck chases people who focus and work hard. But even then, outcome is the key. If you can't deliver outcomes, then it's very difficult to continue to be successful, whether it's in the corporate world or in entrepreneurship. So that is something that I wanted to share about my journey. And in leadership, there are some of the lessons I've learned. I think there are some questions around this, and at least I will share my perspective as a leader, and whether you are a project leader at the lowest level or whether you are a CEO of an enterprise. Your most important job is the way one of my bosses very early in life told me when he promoted me, that Abid, I can make you the manager of your people. You will need to become the leader, their leader. And there is a very important nuance in the difference between being a manager, which companies make you, and being leader, which your teams accept you. And so my learning in leadership is that you can be a good leader when you are able to provide a vision, but you empower others to then execute on your vision. You create a buy-in on the vision for the rest of your team, and then they become passionate about delivering to your vision and own your vision as much as you author the vision. It's hard to give up control, but you can't be micromanaging everything. But you have to be careful of architecting choices, because you can only delegate authority. You never delegate responsibility in leadership. So as you saw, fortunately or unfortunately, I know that team well. I've worked with Dave Calhoun closely when he was at GE and Nielsen. I did multi-billion-dollar deals with him. He's now the CEO of Boeing. And since it's all in the public news, I'm sure the guy who got separated from Boeing last week, who ran the 737 factory, is a great leader who everybody would want to aspire to be. But with one door flying off, a very, very successful career comes to a very difficult pause, if not end. So you have to make sure that you give up control, but keep in mind that you're only you continue to be responsible, and hence be close enough to be able to help architect the choices that your teams make. There will always be a balance that you'll have to strike as a leader between sustaining and disrupting. And I think about it very simply, sustain everything that is good, but don't be afraid of disrupting to become great. So again, there's a very good book, which I'm sure a lot of you might have read, but if you have not, I would recommend it. Good to Great. I know some of the data has become outdated from Jim Collins' research, but the concepts still work, which is have always, you will be the person who will think all your, as a leader, all your subordinates will come and tell you how good they are doing in today's world. You will be the guy who will be thinking going forward on what could disrupt you and what you can disrupt for competition to be more successful going forward. And then always rely on data, but trust your intuition. And that is extremely.
We lost him.
Yeah, I think we lost the connection. Let me try to get to it.
Hey, Archit.
Hi, sir.
Hey, while he is coming back,
Mhm.
I'm a one batch senior to him. Can
Uh-huh.
I fill in a little bit while he's calling in for the group? So my
Sh-
experience, I'm
sh-
a 89 graduate. He
Mhm.
was a 80, 90 graduate.
Mhm.
And we both were in the same hostel in Raipur. I went
Oh.
to IIT Bombay before him, and he followed
Uh-huh.
there. I know
Uh-huh.
he's a CEO, so I cannot say he followed. But at that time, you think about in the college, one batch junior, how you treat. You are
Uh,
almost connected to one batch senior and one batch junior. So he was
that.
one batch junior. Sorry, Abid, I will take 30 seconds while
Yeah.
I was filling in for these guys. The part which I'm saying is we had our journey. He was one batch junior to me in Raipur. He was one batch junior to me in IIT Bombay. And the years later, I was his client. I was in Corning. I received him as a CEO of Wipro. And when Corning was a client for him, that was a very different moment for me. I don't know. I was more meeting like Abid, but he was CEO. Many people don't know that we know each other, but we met little away from our buildings so that we are meeting like a friend kind of thing. And Abid brought his team, and they all were sitting outside and watching his Wipro team. We were hugging, and that's what happened. So that was my journey of 89, 90 or something to around 250, 215, or whenever he was CEO, he came to us. It was a what goosebumps and movement and everything. Okay, I just want to give you that.
Great,
Thanks.
great.
Thank you for sharing that, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Murthy. Always been very kind. Um, so I don't know, something happened and I kind of got dropped off. But I would always trust intuition. I always believe in believing in your heart and doing what your heart says eventually. Of course, it can't be reckless. It has to be based on data. But in the corporate world, I've realized that you can get all the data to justify what you think your gut wants you to do. And finally, I will rather quote Bezos because he says it very well, than be paranoid. Whether it is for your own success, for your company's success, for your business's success, wake up every morning and say, how can I be disrupted? And have an open mind to make changes. Because those who think that success is permanent are the ones who get complacent, and very quickly the slide begins. One of the, although I've worked only for 2 companies as an employee, but there are 2 other companies which I almost believe that I'm an employee of, because I've learned a lot from both those companies. I've done a ton of business with both those companies. One of them is General Electric, the other is Citibank. And I still have my Six Sigma black belt from General Electric. They gave me a black belt certification. And it used to be an iconic company, and see where it is. And I could see that arrogance coming up in that period, where although I was not smart enough to predict that it was going to be a downslide, but I saw that firsthand. So I love the way Bezos puts it. And I think it is as true personally for each one of us individually as well. So a lot of things I believe, organizations are very human-like, and human beings and organizations are both living creatures that are successful for some of the same attributes. So from here, I will pivot into why I am so excited about the future. And this is very relevant to all of us from NIT Raipur. India today, unlike 1998 when I was traveling to the US, I met a guy at the airport at the baggage claim, and he asked me, "Do you own a motel?" When they saw Indian faces at that time, they thought you must be in a motel. Now, a few years back, my father had traveled to the US in a flight, and he was sitting next to American, Caucasian American, and he was asked the question, "Are you the father of a technology geek?" So that's the brand which has moved. And I'm sure Majid sir and a lot of others who have been here much, much longer than me would have witnessed that firsthand. So it's a great time to be ethnically Indian and be in the United States, for those of you who are joining here in the United States. And I think this is the opportunity for us to make the most out of it. I know there were some questions about the attributes of Indian leaders. I think just the cultural way in which Indians are brought up, where there is a good balance of what one could argue is spirituality, one could argue as empathy, one could argue as family values and stuff like that, along with the intellectual capability, the professional intellect that we have. It's a great combination that we have, and maybe this is our generation which has it. Maybe two generations later, like every German who came to the US or every Irish person who came to the US 200 years back, our children or our next two generations may not necessarily have it. So this is an opportunity for this generation. This is an opportunity for everybody who's there on this call. And this is data which all of you know. I'm sure all your WhatsApp buzz with this every day. It's a great time to be on the intersection of United States and India with everything that is going on. And I was when I was Wipro CEO, I was a member of the Business Roundtable, which is an association of about the top 150 CEOs in the country, and they meet every quarter in Washington DC. And there were numerous occasions when I was requested for recommending a chief information officer, a chief technology officer, a chief strategy officer by them. And the only reason I was requested was because they thought that there is a good chance that I will recommend an Indian for that. So that is established right now. So I have always believed when you are employed, you work like an owner, but there is also a great opportunity to actually be an owner yourself. And as you work in corporates, as you work in every job, I would encourage you to identify opportunities for growing yourself personally and creating a startup, creating a business, or creating a business line within your enterprise, inside your enterprise as well, which is not a good idea. And looking at, a gap or a need that may exist. A very simple example, rather than trying to explain that, is what Uber did. Yellow taxis, yellow cabs existed long. I think what Uber identified is the need that was unmet in terms of customer service, in terms of ease of hailing cabs. And today it's Lyft and Uber and Ola and others are multi-billion-dollar companies. Turn your passion or skill. I see, somehow that women have a knack to do it. The two examples that come to my mind are Nykaa, again, Falguni Nair, which I'm sure a lot of you know or have heard about, who's created an amazing cosmetic brand in India in the presence of many, many other leaders in that space with multinational companies, competing with multinational companies. The other one, which I'm very impressed with, I'd recommend if you can get to read the book or attend the podcast of Sarah Blakely of Spanx. Again, something that she herself had an issue in terms of the women's innerwear, and she's built a fantastic company now on it. So just identifying things that you're passionate about, identifying a need and doing it. Similarly, operational efficiencies are a huge opportunity. Sometimes we are always there, we are in the business, we crib about our own business, but we don't identify that it exists as an opportunity to deliver. Low-cost airlines are a good example of thinking like on those terms in the airline business. There are many, many other examples. And then, we develop a lot of market knowledge. We have it all here in the head, but identify that market knowledge to create value. One of the companies that I think Majid Saab knows of that company as well. In fact, he introduced me to that company originally, but I'm very impressed. Is a company called Card.com. Again, ethnically Indian Asian founders. They've done an amazing job. The guy who's the founder was executive at Home Depot, and he identified exactly the issue that large enterprises face as they go to market with having disparate storefronts on the web, in the store, with other franchisees and others, and then the issue that they have in fulfillment from warehouses through all of these channels. And he's created an amazing franchise in about just 3 or 4 years. I think the company was founded in 2020. It's amazing that 3 years they've created $500 million franchise. So those are some examples of how you can identify from your own knowledge of the business and market that you execute. Something has changed on my screen. I hope everybody is able to see.
I'll take care of it. Nand Gupta, can you please stop sharing? Somebody called Nand Gupta has joined.
Okay.
Can you please stop sharing? Let me see if I can take care of that.
And so I would just encourage everybody to kind of identify opportunities that they see, and then maybe.
Okay, I have requested him to go. You can present.
Okay, so should I just stop and start sharing again?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
I think I know him.
Okay, go ahead, Abid.
Yeah. Okay. So, as I said, there is a ton of opportunities that you in your day-to-day work can spot. There are some drivers, again, which all of us know. Gen AI right now, a seismic shift in technology creates a lot of opportunities. Social and geopolitical shifts, Bumble and a lot of others are examples of those kind of shifts which are created into businesses as, women's rights or independence or things like that evolve. Shift in macroeconomics. I've worked closely with a company called SoFi. Again, a lot of you would know. They started on student loans, low-cost student loans for people who might not have access to those loans. Again, as macroeconomic parameters change, some of these are very, very real in India. As financial inclusion is taking place in India right now, I'm invested in a few companies. We won't have the time to talk about it right now, but huge opportunities there. Competitive pressures, people like Netflix. I don't know, there are a lot of young people on this call, but Netflix started as a CD mailing company. And today it is one of the largest. It's giving a hard time to even Disney. And if you're reading the newspapers, you'll know Disney is being chased by activists for not performing well enough. Because Netflix is producing its own movies and stuff like that. It's a great example of, again, how you can convert a competitive pressure into a business opportunity and pivot your business or create a new business out of it. And I won't talk on how calamities, although very unfortunate, can create business opportunities. Zoom, as all of us know, was a great success and an example, and many other businesses doing this. So I'll just kind of pause here. Essentially, if you have an idea, get a team together, get a set of people who are like-minded, as passionate as you, create a vision, be obsessed with your idea. It's not easy. It takes a long time. Every morning you will think you want to quit, and that you need to be obsessed with the idea you have. And this is not true alone because you're an entrepreneur. Even if you're in your own company, and you want to be successful. Unless you do something different from the rest of the pack, rest of your peers, you won't be able to achieve that success. And that's why even when you're inside the company, if you are not innovative, if you're not being obsessed with an idea and delivering it to success and delivering outcomes, it's hard to be successful right now. And then always prepare for difficult times, because there will be ups and downs in the business, in your idea, in whatever you do. So I'll just leave it at this slide. This is a talk for the future. If anybody is interested in starting their own business, what it takes to get money, what it takes to get capital to run your own business. Because then you'll have to pitch to investors like Majid Saab and me to say, I want some of your money to fund my idea. And this can be another topic for another time. But at least think on these lines, because you may not even pitch today. But is your idea solving a problem? As I like to say, is it a vitamin or a painkiller? A lot of young people come with too much vitamins. And how many people take vitamins till the doctor insists that, your bones will break if you don't take calcium or D3.
Yeah.
Right? So people only like to take, enterprises like to take painkillers. They don't like to take vitamins. Understand it's a big enough market. Of course, put a good team, as I said, with you. Have clear plans, what outcomes you will deliver. And then, I'm sure there are some other nuances that you need to cover, and you will get money. There's a lot of dry powder, a lot of capital available for smart people to use in today's world. There is more capital than there is takers for that capital, is what I see from where I see. So you may have an opportunity to become the next either Satya or Sundar in the American corporate world, or you may be having the opportunity to become the next Ambani or Tata or whatever in the entrepreneurial world. So I will pause here, and then I'm happy to take questions. I might not have seen all the questions which are coming up, so if somebody can facilitate the questions, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Sure, sir. Rahul sir, you want to go ahead and take the questions?
Yeah, definitely. So thank you, Abidji, for such a great talk. And also, just to take your offer for further talks, I would like to say in Hindi, ये तो सिर्फ ट्रेलर था, film अभी बाकी है. So we will be definitely taking you on that offer, because those are the next deep dive we can learn from your experience. And we have a lot of people who are young as well as experienced and who have reached different levels, and they would like to follow. So we'll definitely arrange for another one. So what we'll do is I will ask some questions which people have asked, and then we will leave it open for people. Anybody who can raise their hand, we'll call them. So first question came from Avni. It was more of an individual related question, but I'll translate that into corporate. So basically, how to handle clients who are happy, but always try to negotiate prices down. So that's one question. She is asking about property management, but I think this applies to corporate level negotiations also.
Absolutely. So, one of the good fortunes or bad fortunes I had was that I was responsible when I was at TCS very early in my life for the General Electric relationship. General Electric, for those of you who may not know, was one of the very early outsourcers and believers in the Indian IT industry. So TCS, Infosys, Wipro, Satyam, Patni, all these early IT companies had General Electric as their clients, and they were notorious to come back every year and ask for a discount. So I kind of sharpened my teeth working with them. And one of the things I have learned is, number one, make sure that you always advertise your value. So, I shared one slide over here on outcomes. That was, you measure your own personal outcomes for the company and show it to the company. But as a supplier, you measure those outcomes, the business value that you're creating for your customer, and show it to them. That is very, very important. Sometimes that appreciation get lost, and otherwise it's simple marketing, simple brand building. That is extremely important, number one. Number two, after saying that, what I mean is if you are able to demonstrate value, you get negotiating leverage. You are able to say no, you are able to negotiate the discounts down, all of that. But number two, always put yourself in the customer's shoes. I'll give you one very small example, which I've remembered again from my early days. This was 2001. I was by that time I had already moved. I was still the account manager for TCS for General Electric. And I had flown down to Cincinnati to meet the chief information officer of a company called GE Aircraft Engines. I alluded to the Boeing CEO, Dave Calhoun. He was the CEO of that business at that time. His chief information officer, Russ Meyers, met me and said, I want you to reduce your cost by 50%. And he said, he gave me a long spiel of why. And for those, again, who might not remember the context, September 11, 2001, there were two planes that hit the World Trade Center towers, very unfortunately. Both those planes were carrying GE aircraft engines on them. The planes were insured by a company called GE reinsured by GE Reinsurance, GE Capital. And the buildings that they hit were partly owned by GE's asset management company. So not only it was a very difficult time for all of the world, the US especially, but it was a very, very difficult time for General Electric as a company, and the entire airline industry had shut. People, of course, the government shut down the US airspace for the first time in its history for a few days, but after that, nobody wanted to travel in planes. And after he made that spiel, I said, Russ, I get it. Here is a proposal by which your spend on TCS will reduce by half. And he said, you've already thought about it. And I said, yes, absolutely. I read the newspapers every day. I didn't have to wait for your meeting to expect this question. And the reason I say this story is 4 years later, I used to do every 6 months or so, I used to meet him and do review of how my business is going with his business. And 4 years later, I got promoted and I had stopped doing those reviews. My team, somebody else had taken over my role. And but I still had that responsibility in my unit. And I went to meet him for lunch. And my successor, who was responsible for that, was making that same presentation of how the business is doing and stuff. And that presentation had a graph which was showing that we were really doing, TCS was really doing good business with General Electric. And Russ tells me, Abid, remember that day when you had come to my office? I had called almost all my vendors in that week. And there were vendors who argued why they cannot reduce and why their costs are high and why they are having problems themselves, so they can't help me with my problems. And then there were vendors like you. And he used the word partners. Then there were partners like you. Your graph has gone 10x in the last 4 years. Those guys don't have a graph to show anymore. Mm-hmm. So like human beings, institutions have long memories, and by nature they are good. Like people are good, institutions are good, and they pay you back. There'll always be exceptions, and there'll be people who will, like human beings, there'll be people who will take advantage of you and stuff like that. But mostly business is done based on relationships and based on mutual help and support.
That's very well said. I think you showed the customer focus and you thought about the customer's needs, and when they asked you, you were ready. So that was a great answer. Avani, I think that helps you at your individual property management level also. Abhilash asked a question about as a PhD scholar at NIT Raipur, what could be a possible roadmap that I should approach venture capitalists or investors which can result into positive outcomes? That's Abhilash's question.
So that was my last slide, Abhilash. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time to go into detail of it, but think about an idea that is differentiated. Think about why you are the best person to execute that idea, and get some early market traction on that idea so that you prove that concept. And if you have these three things, I call it the 3 T's. You have a team, you have traction, and you have a technology or an idea that is differentiated or unbeatable. Investors will line up to pour money to your idea.
Yeah, this is being recorded, so Abhilash, you can watch that particular slide again. So Ashish Mohapatra asks, it's a long question, I'll just shorten it, saying that you have seen a lot of technology changes, and now we are at the cusp of or the beginning of LLM, Gen AI type of technology. So in your opinion, how would it pan out in the next couple of years? And how should we all, both freshers and veterans, be prepared to ride the wave rather than let the wave sail us? Good question.
Great question. I'll give you a very short answer because this could be another 1 hour conversation.
Yeah.
But Gen AI is not just another technology. It is a seismic shift. And I worry, there's a huge opportunity, of course, but I also worry about complacence in the industry I grew up. Because the way I look at my industry, IT services, IT enabled services, there is a pyramid of work. And in the late 90s, early 2000s, our industry took the lower end of the pyramid of work, the easier tasks, the repeatable tasks, and moved it to India. And that's how we've created a $300 billion IT services industry that we all boast about a lot. And that's really changed India. I believe that has made a huge difference to the young people in India. Job opportunities. Every one IT professional has created 5 other jobs of drivers, maids, stuff. So it's a whole trickle effect which has changed India's future economically. And I'm a firm believer of that. But I also believe Gen AI and artificial intelligence in general, whether it is machine learning or LLMs and everything, is again traversing that same path. It is starting from the bottom of the pyramid and taking away those tasks because it's automating those tasks. It doesn't need humans to do those tasks anymore. It can do it. And like the Indian IT industry, move from the bottom of the pyramid towards the upper end of the pyramid, Gen AI and artificial intelligence in general is going to move up. So if you are looking at it from the top of the pyramid, there are huge opportunities. Be in an AI business, pivot your business into AI, or create a business which is to do with AI. And there are a ton of opportunities. And then use some of the things I talked about in my thing, how to spot that opportunity, how to identify that opportunity. You have market knowledge, you have the inefficiency knowledge, you have the best understanding because you are doing it the old way. So be the Netflix. The guys who were shipping CDs were the best guys who could stream video when internet came in.
Yeah.
You have that opportunity. If you look at it from the bottom of the pyramid, be paranoid. Yeah. Your job can get disrupted. Your business, your company that you're working for can get disrupted because your work may not be required anymore because artificial intelligence will do it.
I think that you said very well. And I was with TCS and I have seen that shift from, starting at the bottom service and then going up, and now TCS is where it is. So I've seen that, and I think this is a very good suggestion. And there's also a book called "Who Moved My Cheese," a very interesting book. So that also, I think it's a very small book. People can read it quickly. Now, by the way, thanks everyone for being very disciplined, not intervening in between. We'll open it up for questions. So before I go, I have a question. Is that does a CEO have any time to relax? With so many responsibilities, how did you manage a good work-life balance? And I would like to add, what are your hobbies? After that, everybody can please raise your hand. I will take those questions one by one. So Abhijit, take away that question.
Sure. I'll answer the easiest part of the question first. So, I love traveling. I love adventure sports, and I love being with the family and reading. So those are my hobbies, and all of those kind of feed into my relaxation, um, and help me balance my work and life. On work-life balance, I have a concept which is a little uh, contravening to what is said in the literature. So take it with that pinch of salt. I think there is nothing like a work-life balance. I think it's a continuum. And especially with work from home and all of that, I think I have my cell phone, my work email has always been on my cell phone, and before going to bed, I browse my emails. I may respond to a couple of emails. I may think about what I'm going to do next morning based on that. It could be 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the night, and I still work. I think if you grow up in a small business family, when a business opportunity comes up, uh, the businessman will make good that opportunity, right? And I've always believed that whether you are an employee or whether you are a business owner, if you don't have an owner's mindset, then you will do good. You'll make the 100K, 150K a year and retire happily. But if you want to be ambitious, if you want to be successful, then you should not get too bogged down in this work-life balance. You should think of it as a continuum. And if there is a 10 o'clock in the morning, if there is a parent-teachers meeting of your child, you should go and attend that. And your company will accommodate that if you have to spend 1 hour going from office to school and coming back. And if at 9 o'clock in the night you have to take a call for an outage that has happened in your company's IT systems, you should take that call. Doesn't matter, you're sitting at home. So I think you should treat it as a continuum. You should not try to segregate it too much. And I also believe that there are some small tools. One thing that worked very well for me, and it started working well for me because once I forgot and I planned a travel on my wife's birthday. So once you make a mistake with your spouse, you remember all your life. And one thing that I started practicing is all major festivals, all major family events, all major children's events, school, college, all of that, I started putting in my calendar. The only disadvantage I had was that my privacy, my secretary always knew everything about my family. She still knows today. She wishes my children sometimes before I wish them because she knows their birthdays. But the way I thought about it is I never miss a customer meeting because it is on my calendar. Why should I miss wishing my child a birthday? Or why should I plan an overseas trip or a different city travel on my anniversary day if it is on my calendar? And it made it so easy because at some point when you grow in your professional life, you have a secretary and she knows this day Abid doesn't travel because something is there. And it gets taken care of. So for me, just treat all your personal engagements with the same importance that you treat your professional engagements. And that to me creates a very good work-life balance.
Excellent. Thank you so much for this advice. In fact, somebody was telling me that we work at our company. We don't work for the company. We work for our family, ourselves, our country. And that actually taught me a lot that, company, of course, important. But at the same time, you work at a company. Even if you change the company, your family remains the same. So your continuum concept is very good. That I think that's something that we all can take. And now we are all the questions are done, so we can open it for people. And Abhinit Mishra has raised a hand. And also, by the way, raise your hand not in your no, not the physical hand, but in the chat below there is a thing where you can raise a hand. So Abhinit, take it away.
Yeah. Hey, good morning, Rahul sir and Abid sir. Thanks a lot for the great session. I have a simple question for Abid sir. Sir, which is that leadership principle which has impacted and has changed your course of leadership the most? And second, what are the top 3 books which you would recommend to IT professionals like us?
Okay. So, I shared some of the leadership traits, but one of the things that I think if you ask me to choose one,
Yeah.
we are in a competitive world. Uh, any company that you join, about 100 people join that company if it's small, about 1,000 people join it if it is large. And finally, it's a race that you have to get ahead of. So ask yourself, are you doing something that everybody else is doing or wants to do? Or are you doing something that nobody else wants to do? But it's sensible. Not nobody else wants to do because it's senseless, but nobody else wants to do because it's higher risk, because higher risk is higher reward.
Yeah.
And you should be able to take that risk. Only 2 things, many things I did in my career, but 2 things that I did in my career, which I think has gone a long way in changing my path. One is when everybody in IIT wanted to go to Citibank and Schlumberger, I went to an unknown company called TCS. It worked very well for me. Similarly, when everybody wanted to handle bigger and bigger portfolios, I agreed to go back to zero from the portfolio I was handling in revenue terms and rebuild a business all over again. So those are difficult decisions. You wake up, that's why I said, you need to have a lot of obsession with what you want to do, because you'll wake up some nights and say, my friend was right. I think I'm out of favor. I made a mistake. Because all your friends are going to tell you, you're well-wishers. Forget the people who envy you and who laugh at you. I'm not even worried about those guys. Your well-wishers will tell you you are making a mistake. Kya kar rahe ho yaar? Pagal ho gaya. And that's where you will know that is the right thing for you.
Got it.
And books, few books.
So there are a lot of books right now, and because I entered so I've got this whole shelf of books over here. One of my all-time favorite has been Jim Collins. Recently, I've been reading the book on AI by Mustafa Suleiman. It's a very good book. I would recommend that. I would also wanted to read 1 or 2 books. There is a book on Nike over here. Some of these are all over here, depending on your interests. But there
Sir,
are some very good. Yeah.
if you can send a screenshot of this one, we will, it will be good for another 5 years for us,
Yeah, I will do that.
Thank you.
Recently, I'm reading a book called King of Capital, because I have entered from an operator in technology industry. I've entered the investing world. So this is a book I just finished, and it's a pretty good book. If you are interested in understanding capital, as I said, Phil Knight's Shoe Dog is one of my favorite books. It talks a lot about this thing. Recently I've got a little more this thing on podcasts.
Oh yeah.
And I would highly encourage you, when I am in the gym, I'm listening podcasts and I thought I knew everything about Walmart and Amazon. I listened to the podcast on Acquired for both. First listen to the Walmart one and then listen to the Amazon one. It's an amazing, it's like an MBA. It's like both of them are 3-hour podcasts. So it's a 6-hour, you can do a full MBA in 6 hours on business. These are all business books.
Yeah.
One of the things which I've tried to do, you will see it over here, and I've not been very successful, is my son, who did an MBA and is very technologically savvy, did liberal arts in his graduation. And when he originally came up with that idea, my wife freaked out, because he said, I'm going to do arts. And India se jo bhi aate hai, wo samajh jate hain कि BA karega. BA, BCom bhi nahi, BSc bhi nahi, BE to chodo, BA karega. But then I realized how much it is important in business. So I've just started reading this, which is hard. So I wouldn't recommend it yet. It's the Republic.
Plato.
And I've started to read Plato and others. Let's see how far I go.
Very, very well said. So
Thank
now
you.
next one is Majid sir, who has raised his hand. Sir, ask the question. Okay, I think he lost the connection. He will come back. Are you there, Majid sir? Okay. Anybody else wants to ask any question? Pramod Sharma, I think from my batch, right? 85. Go ahead, Pramod. Unmute. Milind Kerkar also wants. I think Pramod is probably unmuting. Milind, you go ahead, please, first. Yeah, there he is.
To see you.
Hi, Millet.
How are you?
Good, good.
So, quick question, Abid. So, you talked about the newcomers, right? So, what is your advice for the oldies like you, me, and others, right? Where to go take the advantage of AI?
I think the biggest advantage that we have and our generation has is we understand the guts of the organization. We know where inefficiencies lie. We know where there are breakpoints. I'll give you one example because it's much easier. We just recently invested in a company called VUNet. VUNet is a observability company. If you know companies like Splunk and Datadog, this is a company out of India, a guy called Ashwin, who spent his time in IT industry. He knows that every company measures observes the kind of uptime and everything of their own IT infrastructure. What he realized working in banks in his career is that nobody measures it as a customer journey. So when you do a payments, and he started with UPI in India, when you do a payment, there is a person who's making the payment, there is a merchant who's getting the payment, there is a clearing house, there is a bank for the person, bank account of the person who's making the payment, and then there is a bank account of the merchant. There are 5 entities involved, and a payment can break if any one of those 5 entities' IT systems don't perform as expected. And he's created a great business out of it. The business is growing very, very well. I don't think a young 25-year-old would have been able to come up with that idea, because he knows the intricacies, having worked for 15, 20, 30 years in the financial services industry, how credit card companies work, how networks work, how banks work, how merchants work. And because of the domain expertise, he was able to come up with that idea. So I think Gen AI or any of the new technologies are as much, so there will be some Steve Jobs who will be from these young guys who will say, I'm going to deliver to you a need that you don't even know exists. That's what Steve Jobs did with Apple. But there will be a ton of people like us who know inefficiencies, who know breakpoints, who know opportunities for improvement, who can create businesses around it and be very successful.
Okay. Majid sir is back. Majid sir, aap puch liye. Then after that, Gajendra Kakure from my batch is here. We'll ask him to ask the question. Go ahead,
Okay.
Majid sir.
Yeah, Abid is not a question, but just a comment. First of all, I'm so glad that you joined this, and I see your energy, and I'm thinking why I am so retired now. I should be working hard. What an energy. And I really appreciate that a lot of people have attended this, and I think we should maintain this quorum going forward. And Abid, I think we are learning from you more and more. So keep in touch with us, okay? Even though all our young folks are here, so I think next time we'll have some more people joined in. So this is just a comment. I really appreciate your call today. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Gajendra, go ahead. Gajendra Kakure, joining from India, I think.
Yeah. Hello, Rahul. How are you?
Hello.
Yeah.
So go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah. I just wanted to know that as a leader, when you try to recruit some people down the line, what are the 3 top qualities you look into?
So, the first thing, even before I get into the quality of the people I'm recruiting, one of the qualities I look into myself is how uncomfortable I am willing to be with a person. Do I want to hire a person like me, or do I want to hire a person who complements me? And I have been most successful when I have hired people who were complimenting me, which means they made me uncomfortable. They had skills that I didn't have.
Correct.
And I continue to practice that to this day. Second thing that I tell myself is don't be very punitive on yourself. In lateral hiring, if you're 50% successful, it's pretty good. So if you hire 5 people or 4 people and only 2 work out and 2 don't work out, it's okay. That's, I think, a good result. That's a good outcome. So 50% in most other cases is not even a pass mark, but 50% in this is like a A+. Okay, only fail fast. Very quickly, in 6 months, you realize that this is a wrong hire and respectfully let that person go. I think the problem we create is like a bad marriage. We elongate it too much, and that is where the problem starts to happen. The qualities I look into the person, number one is the domain knowledge that I'm hiring for. Because for me, there is a thumb rule which I've always practiced is hire from outside or promote from within. And if I want to hire from outside, I always hire for ready-made knowledge. If I want to experiment with a concept, I rather promote from within because I know all the other goods and bads of that person when I'm promoting from within. So that's one thing.
Known devil is better than known angel.
Second thing I look for the person is, and that comes out, because it's a 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour interview at the most, 2-3 times you do the hiring. In that entire conversation, and this is a little personal to me, how much was that person about me and my success? And how much was his conversation about him and his success? Or her and her success? Right. And I think there has to be a judicious balance because that doesn't change. And if it is just too much about the recruitee and recruitee's success without enough of what makes you successful, like it's the same customer centricity, right? There I am the customer. How much is he thinking about me? I have said no to people who I thought, and sometimes they maybe get classified as too ambitious or too self-centered or whatever, but I don't want to be judgmental. I just feel uncomfortable when it's just too much about the recruitee and too little about the recruitment. And a lot of good people make that mistake in interviews and they don't get selected and they wonder why they are not getting selected. So that's a second thing that I always measure. And the third thing I think is the EQ, the social factor. I give a lot of importance to that part because there are a ton of intelligent people, but sometimes they can be very disruptive to the teams. So IQ and EQ balance, or now they call it SQ and all of that, but at least IQ and EQ in the older term balance is very important because you don't want to have the smartest guy in the room who puts off everybody else. Especially in teams that need to work together and interact and be successful, which I would guess is the case in all the places.
Excellent. And I like the last one most. I had few such team members who we would rather not have had, but I totally agree. And I think we have all asked questions. I think Pramod Sharma Pramod is back now. Hey, you are muted, Pramod. Can you unmute and ask the question? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I thank you very much for very good presentation given by Mr. Abidali. Just I wanted to bring in your notice that your presentation was very excellent, and I want just to recall. Actually, I my birthplace is Neemuch, and I passed out in 1985. So with Rahul. So just there was one curiosity that one because you are from that place and then you are from same college and all. So one Mr. Abid Basali was there and I used to take a lot of notes from there and we used to stay in Bangladesh and all those long back down the lane. So I'm very pleased to talk to with you this time and I really thank you so much for having shared your good knowledge, leadership and everything. Even a bit of your this thing will definitely go a long way for improving our future
Thank you,
planning.
Pramodji. It's never, always, a matter of pride that I'm in so many NIT or GEC Raipur folks you added creaming to the cake because now also I'm with Neemuch folks.
Yeah.
Neemuch, as you know
Yeah.
from my last name, is my hometown.
Yes. Yes.
Parents came from Neemuch. But since you are from Neemuch, I'll tell you one very interesting fact in the IT
Okay.
industry about Neemuch.
Okay.
There are the top 5 IT companies, as you might know, in India are TCS, Wipro, Infosys, HCL, and Cognizant. And
Okay.
Neemuch has the unique, as a city, has the unique privilege of providing 2 chief executive officers.
Oh. What?
So CP Gurnani, who until recently was the chief executive officer of Tech Mahindra,
Okay.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, but.
is also born in Neemuch.
Wow.
Although I am not born in Neemuch, my parents were born in Neemuch, and I carry the Neemuchwala name. So sometimes you wonder, such a small city, but nobody knows. I'm sure 80% of the people on this call don't even know where Neemuch is on the map, but it has somehow had this great distinction of providing 2 CEOs to the Indian IT industry.
Yes.
Wow.
Excellent.
Very
Thank you.
good. I'm really pleased. Okay. Thank you so much.
Actually speaking,
Feeling
I
so
think
good.
this is going so well. I don't want this to end, but at the same time, to respect everyone's weekend, I think we should conclude the call, and we will take you up on the offer, Abidji, for more further deep dive into different nuances of corporate leadership. So I'll give it back to Archit.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Abidali
Sir,
sir.
Abid
It
sir,
was
please
great.
send the book list. Please send the book, the screenshot of your library. I already ordered 2 books, while listening this. Thank you.
Go ahead,
Thank you.
Archit.
Sorry, Archit. Yeah.
Yeah. No worries. Thank you so much for the wonderful talk. All of us really enjoyed it. And I should say that this is the highest audience we have had in a live call. We also post this on the YouTube channel so people can go back and watch it. So anybody who joined later and had certain questions could go back and rewatch it along with the other episodes that we have posted. It generally, there is a lag depending on our schedule. So we post it in 4 or 5 days. But sir, it was a very, very informative session, and I'm pretty sure, like by the response, you can judge that we enjoyed it a lot. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, and thanks for everybody patiently listening. As I said, it's always embarrassing to tell your own story, but I hope there's something that learned, and I learned a lot on the call myself, and especially with all the seniors over here. There's always a continuous learning.
Great. I think we can stop the recording, and I can continue this, but I'm stopping the recording, and we can slowly end the call after maybe a few minutes.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.